Right, let's stay with that story. I'm joined now by Institute for Security Studies researcher at the Lake Chad Basin Programme, Teniola Tayo. Teniola, good evening and thank you very much for your time tonight here in Fox. Are you at all surprised by Osinbajo joining the presidential race?
Not at all. I think we've been talking about this for quite a while. In fact, there are already campaign offices set up here in Abuja, just that they were not set up officially by his campaign, but by other groups. So it's been in the news, for a while.
Now, in the period of 7 years when he's been vice president, serving in several capacities, what has he done to add to the direction, I suppose, of Nigeria?
That's the question he's going to have to answer, and he's going to have to choose his answers very carefully. Because, if you ask most Nigerians at the moment, they feel like a lot of things have gotten worse in the last 7 years. This government feels like they've achieved some things, and then he's going to have to come out clearly and tell us what his office, so the VP's office, was responsible for in the context of the last 7 years, or in the context of this administration. So that's a question that we're looking to him to answer as well.
Yeah, his speech says he's represented the country in sensitive, high-level international engagements. He says he's practically been into all local governments in Nigeria. He's been in farms, he's been in factories, he's been in schools, he's been in agriculture, mining, oil production, seemingly well-versed in a number of industries. Will this stand him in good stead?
One thing that no one will deny is that Professor Osinbajo is a very intelligent man. One thing that no one will deny is that he has a lot of empathy. So it's true that he's been in, a lot of these meetings, and he's also been quite visible when some of the disasters that we are often faced with happen. But I think that he's going to struggle with the fact that, in general, this administration is seen to have, in some ways worsened the lives of Nigerians. So he's it's two different things. So on one hand, people know that he's quite intelligent, more intelligent than the average politician in Nigeria. But on the other hand, he's been a core part of an administration that has been at the helm of affairs when a lot of things have gotten worse in terms of insecurity, the economy, and just many other things. So it's a mixed bag, I'd say.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more about that question of security. Seems to be having some kind of pain and anguish. He says, I identify with the pain and anguish of victims of violent terrorist attacks. Of course, the question of terrorism groups, insurgency operating in Nigeria has obviously come under the spotlight in recent months and recent years, and it's been a massive challenge. Do you think he possibly could have the solutions to this insurgency problem?
So, we have the insurgency in the northeast, but then in the northwest and in the north central, we have what we call banditry, right, which is now almost a bigger problem because it's killing a lot more people and displacing a lot more. In the south, we have a form of an insurgency. We have some violence there in form of unknown gunmen linked to the secessionist group IPOB. And then even in the southwest and in some other parts of the south, we have an increase in kidnapping. So now it's not just insurgency in the northeast. There's a broad range of violent events happening across Nigeria. Does Osinbajo have the capacity to address these issues? I think that, again, this is something that he has to come out clearly and say, because he's been the vice president for 7 years. So the question is, was he trying to address them in that position? What were his challenges then? And how does he intend to do things better, as president? So these are the big questions that we'll be asking him as Nigerians.
Yeah. And on that question, you already mentioned of the economy. He says he is completing the job of radically transforming Africa's biggest economy. What are the low-hanging fruits for him in as far as what needs to be implemented to reform the structure of the economy of Nigeria so that it is transformed and inclusive?
So that's a tricky thing because the VP's office has been leading some initiatives to reform the economy. So some years ago, there was some efforts to improve the business environment in Nigeria because our business environment is not great. It's still very, very low. It's quite difficult to export things out of Nigeria, despite the fact that we very drastically need to increase our exports, beyond crude oil and petroleum products. So he has tried to lead some of those efforts, but they were not able to yield a lot of fruit. So I'd say that, again, I think we're looking forward to hearing some new ideas. One of the big issues we have now is oil subsidies. So we pay subsidies on petroleum products, to make oil quite cheap in Nigeria. I think we have one of the cheapest prices for petrol here. But then it's really affecting the federation accounts, and it's affecting so many other things. So that's something that needs to be fixed, as soon as possible. It'll be interesting to hear what his idea for that is, because that's something that I think that will be a low-hanging fruit as far as trying to transform the Nigerian economy is.
Let's look at this competition then. Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. You also have on the list there. Okay, I'll get the other name, but talk to me about Tinubu first. And as a competition, how strong is he against Asinbajo?
It's interesting because if you follow Nigerian politics, you know that one of the reasons why Buhari or this administration or the APC was able to come into power 7 years ago was because of Tinubu. So there was a merger between Buhari's camp and Tinubu's camp, and I think a few other smaller parties. And Tinubu used his own weight, his political weight, to push Buhari. So there was a sense that it would eventually be Tinubu's turn. But then into the administration, it was clear that it seemed there was a bit of departure between Buhari and Tinubu, so not as close as they ought to be. Tinubu as Osinbajo's opponent is quite interesting because Osinbajo is supposedly Tinubu's godson, or when it comes to politics, you have political godfathers and political godsons. So Tinubu was quite instrumental to Osinbajo coming into Nigerian politics, even way back when Tinubu was the governor of Lagos State. So this was one of the reasons why we were not sure if Osinbajo was eventually going to run, because it would pitch him directly against Tinubu, his supposed political godfather. But generally speaking, I'd probably say that, if you ask many Nigerians, I haven't done the polls, so I can't say this factually, but they will probably align more with Osinbajo than Tinubu just because of some of Tinubu's past statements. You probably cannot fault Osinbajo for some of his past statements as far as our problems go. But with Tinubu, he's made some statements that some may consider to be quite divisive. And then he hasn't really shown any, in my opinion, any strong thinking or inclination towards some of the big issues that we have. But then you have a lot of those, you have some evidence of that thinking on Osinbajo's side. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. The first hurdle is the primary elections actually. So they have to select the candidates from the primary elections before the rest of us Nigerians can select who's going to be our president.
Yeah. Transport Minister and former two-time governor of oil-producing Rivers State, Rotimi Amaechi, has also declared interest to run. What are the prospects for him?
Amaechi, an interesting candidate, and again, there was some idea that he was going to run. I think that the politics around him is going to be a little bit different, and there's some question about who may be supporting him or not at the highest levels. But I think that everything is going to come to a head at the primary election. So APC had their convention very recently, and the way the convention went was that a lot of the positions were selected through consensus. So it means that people were not given the opportunity to vote, at the parties, but then the candidates were selected, and then everyone had to get behind that candidate. If the same thing happens at the primaries, we don't know whether it's going to happen or not. Then it really depends on who the most influential people in the party gets behind, and they're the ones that are more likely to emerge as the candidates for the party.
Teniola Tayo, appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on tonight. Researcher at Lake Chad Basin Institute for Security Studies on the presidential race in Nigeria for 2023. More